Page now.
Page is
248.
248. Yeah. Good morning, Archana.
Good morning, Ranganath. Good morning, everybody.
So Pallavi is starting on page 48.
There are gradations in this last integralizing movement, for it cannot be done at once or without long approaches that bring a progressively nearer and make it at last possible. The first attitude to be taken is to cease to regard ourselves as the worker and firmly to realize that we are only one instrument of the cosmic force. At first, it is not the one force, but many cosmic forces that seem to move us. But these may be turned into feeders of the ego, and this vision liberates the mind, but not the rest of the nature. Even when we become aware of all as the working of one cosmic force and of the divine behind it, that too need not liberate. If the egoism of the worker disappears, the egoism of the instrument may replace it or else prolong it in a disguise. The life of the world has been full of instances of egoism of this kind, and it can be more engrossing and enormous than any other. There is the same danger in yoga. A man becomes a leader of men or eminent in a large or lesser circle and feels himself full of a power that he knows to be beyond his own ego force. He may be aware of a fate acting through him, or a will mysterious and unfathomable, or a light within of great brilliance. There are extraordinary results of his thoughts, his actions, or his creative genius. He effects some tremendous destruction that clears the path for humanity, or some great construction that becomes its momentary resting place. He is a scourge or is a bringer of light and healing, a creator of beauty, or a messenger of knowledge. Or if his works of his or if his work and its effects are on a lesser scale and have a limited field, still they are attended by the strong sense that he is an instrument and a chosen for his mission or his labor. Men who have this destiny and these powers come easily to believe and declare themselves to be mere instruments in the hand of God or of fate. But even in the declaration, we can see that there can intrude or take refuge an intenser or more exaggerated egoism than ordinary men have the courage to assert or the strength to house within them. And often, if men of this kind speak of God, it is to erect an image of Him which is really nothing but a huge shadow of themselves or their own nature, a sustaining deific essence of their own type of will and thought and quality and force. This magnified image of their ego is the master whom they serve. This happens only too often in yoga to strong but crude vital natures or minds too easily exalted when they allow ambition, pride, or the desire of greatness to enter into their spiritual seeking and vitiate its purity of motive. A magnified ego stands between them and their true being and grasps for its own personal purpose the strength from a greater unseen power, divine or undivine, acting through them of which they become vaguely or intensely aware. An intellectual perception or vital sense of a force greater than ours and of ourselves, as moved by it, is not sufficient to liberate from the ego.
Very big para, and a very important para. He is saying, surprisingly enough, that even when you go to the self, even when you go to the self, the ego does not disappear completely. It is replaced. The gross physical ego is replaced by the instrumental ego. And that can be as big and as dangerous, even worse than the other ego. The other ego it's all right. You are in ignorance, but now you are in half light, and that half light also you are misinterpreting. So it can be even more dangerous. Okay? So that's what Sri is describing in this very big para. Okay? So we'll do one thing, because it is so big, I will read out the summary, then we get the basic idea, and then we read each sentence. Okay? You have to see very carefully what he says. Even after you have reached your liberation, these difficulties can be there. And why they can be there, that's what he's discussing. I am reading the summary. Okay? The summary you won't find. I have written it, and it will give you the whole idea in summary, in a very condensed manner. The culminating consummation of the integral yoga is far away and has to be attained only through many gradations. It is necessarily a step-by-step graded procedure. The first step is to stop regarding oneself as the doer of works. Constantly we have to remind ourselves that I am being manipulated by the universal forces. It is not mine. The more you think about it, the more you will detach yourself from the body mind life. One must realize that one is only a minuscule ripple in the vast ocean of cosmic force. We are not even a wave. We are just a ripple. Okay. Initially, it's very interesting this, because one child who was a student in the ashram, she told me very interestingly one day, she had gone to the sea to swim and she was floating in the sea. And when she looked up at the sky, it came with a vast power in her. What are you in the universe? You are absolutely nothing at all. Okay? So it's a very interesting observation. It must have been an experience also. But that's exactly what you have to make yourself understand. That you are nothing. But mostly it's the opposite. Whatever we do, we think, I am doing. Okay? Not even a wave. We are just a ripple. Initially, it is not the one divine force that rules over us. It is the many cosmic forces that use us. The cosmic forces in the universe, they are manipulating us. It is the many cosmic forces that use us as puppets. But this realization and vision, non-doership, is, however, spiritually great and significant. Liberates the, I read wrong, sorry. But this realization and vision of non-doership, however spiritually great and significant, liberates the soul consciousness, but not the outer nature of body, life, mind, which continues to act, emote, think ignorantly, erroneously, and in a petty mode. Even the vision of the cosmic force as a sole doer of all works is not enough to liberate the nature of body, life, mind. The soul is liberated, but not the body, mind, life. Ego of doership may go. Ego of doership may go. You realize that you are not doing, you are an instrument. But the ego of the instrument replaces it. The latter can be even more dangerous than the former for the yogin. In world history, there are many instances of such men in whom the ego regards itself as the instrument of God and indulges its own desires, considering them to be legitimate divine commands. Unfortunately, I can't give you examples, and Sri also has not given examples, but it will be a very interesting research to find out the cases that Sri is referring to. Men who were at a very great level of action and very great level of knowledge, but ego is still dominating them. We have to see. These men can achieve even great results and even become diabolical. So you can become divine or you can become diabolical. Both are possible if your ego is still persisting. So same way saying, he's a scourge or he's a bringer of light and healing. You can go both ways. Okay? A creator of beauty or a messenger of knowledge. On a lower level, the feeling of being a chosen instrument for the work being done, does dominate. Okay? Such men may also declare themselves as instruments of God or fate. In such cases, the egoism is clearly apparent as intruding or housing itself in the being. The magnified ego replaces God whom they think they are serving. This phenomenon is more possible when ambition and pride and desire of greatness sullies the spiritual enthusiasm. Therefore, just a simple perception of a greater power moving them is not enough to effect a deliverance from ego. Just a glimpse of the divine is not enough. This was a mercy. I read the summary. Now we go to the each sentence and see the language he is using. Okay? This perception, this sense of a greater power in us or above and moving us. So you can feel that power either in you or you can feel it above you and moving you from above. Is not an
Ranganath,
hallucination. Yes.
it is the previous para. There are gradations in this.
Okay. What we have to read today?
There are gradations in this the previous para.
Okay. Yeah. I started reading the next para. There are gradations, no? That's what we have to read.
Yes.
1 second. Yeah, that's right. So we get sometimes confused because I don't have pages now. I have only one page at a time. There are gradations in this last integralizing movement. Integralizing movement is talking about the starting from the self going upwards. He is talking about the integralizing movement because in the liberation of the soul, there is no integralization. The integralization comes after that, when you want to go even higher up, because the lower nature remains imperfect and the consciousness has gone to the self, it is free. So there is no integrality at all there. There is a division. Okay? That's it. And the traditional yoga rejects the lower division and take only the higher division. So when Swami is saying integralizing movement, he is talking about the starting point of the self and going even higher. But that can be dangerous. That's what he is pointing out. For it cannot be done at once or without long approaches that bring it progressively nearer and make it at last possible. Even this gradation has been very clearly mentioned in the Gita. Okay? First you are the Hanumanta, then you become the Jnata, then you become the Bharta, you realize that there is a connection with the lower, then you become the Bhokta, okay? And finally you become the Ishvara. So these are the gradations. As you keep climbing in the spiritual world, from higher mind to element mind, intuitive mind and overmind. But the total integralization can come only in the supermind. Even in the overmind, there is no integralization. You see the world as real, not like in the self. You see the world as real, but Purusha and Prakriti, consciousness and force are separate. Okay? So the integralization can come only after in the supermind, not even in the overmind. Now I continue. The first attitude to be taken is to cease to regard ourselves as a worker and firmly to realize that we are only one instrument of the cosmic force. There are 7.5 now, there are 8 billion people on earth, and each one is an instrument of the Lord, ignorantly, half ignorantly, or knowingly. Okay? This is at the level of the spiritual level. The first attitude to be taken is to cease to regard ourselves as a worker and to firmly realize that we are only one instrument of the cosmic force. At first, it is not the one force, but many cosmic forces that seem to move us. What does the sentence mean? At first, it's not the one force. The one force means the supreme will. It is not the supreme will that is guiding you, but many cosmic forces that seem to move us. Why is it saying seem to move us? Because the supreme will itself is coming down, but when it comes down to the cosmic level, it hides itself already, and it is using the cosmic forces. The supreme will is using the cosmic forces to manipulate all the individual forms in the physical world. At first, it is not one force, but many cosmic forces that seem to move us. But these may be turned into feeders of the ego. That's right. Okay? And this vision liberates the mind, but not the rest of the nature. The rest of the nature, he is talking of the body-mind life. Mind is free. Mind means he is talking of the higher mind, not the lower mind. Huh? The mind, the soul, the consciousness of the soul is free in the mental regions. That's why he's saying liberates the mind, but not the rest of nature. Even when we become aware of all as a working of one cosmic force and of the divine behind it, that too need not liberate. See how subtle it is. You are seeing that universal force is manipulating me, and you also see that the universal force also is being handled and managed by the supreme will. Even when that you see, the ego may not disappear. That's what he's saying. At first, it's there. Even when we become aware of all as the working of the cosmic force and the divine behind it, that too need not liberate. If the egoism of the worker disappears, the egoism of the instrument may replace it. Okay? I am an instrument of God. He is using me. Okay? But there also there is a little bit of a pride. So,
Dada, can I ask you a question?
yeah. Yes,
Dada, just here we have read this vision liberates the mind but not the rest of the nature, and you explained that the consciousness of the mind that liberates but not the other region. That means here the consciousness of mind, this is the monomaya purusha, Dada. Is it
yes, Manomaya Purusha, but in the spiritual region.
So higher mind in the sense of, now you have explained that the higher mind deliberated, and not
right.
the rest of the nature.
No,
can you
that's right.
little bit, Dada? Can you please
That's
elaborate? Right. Rest of the nature means what portions, what regions of the mind?
So, okay. Then you must get back to the basic idea that consciousness is one at the highest level. Okay? At the highest level, consciousness is one divine. But when that consciousness, it has the power to reduce itself and come down the staircase, and it can station itself on any one stair of the staircase which is coming down. Okay? It's the same consciousness which is coming down and staying at the over mind level, it can stay at the intuitive mind level, it can stay at the element mind level, higher mind level, it can come down even and stay in the normal mind of man. It's the same consciousness. So when you say Manomaya Purusha, that is the consciousness which has stationed itself at the Mana. Okay? So Manomaya Purusha. But these are all, you must not think of them in a very geographical manner, but the Manomaya Purusha can be there even at the lower level when you realize that you are more mind than vital and body. So this you have to understand. So Manomaya Purusha, when you are using a term, don't get stuck with the words. Okay? He is talking of the liberation of the spiritual level. When you are identified with your body-mind life, you cannot be free. That is sure. So when you are free, your consciousness is situated in the minimum in the higher mind, which is the self. Now you are not identified with your body-mind life, and you realize, you are seeing very clearly that nature is putting thoughts into your mind. Nature is putting emotions and impulsions into your vital, and it is forcing your body to work. Okay. So this is what you realize even at that level. So this is Manomaya Purusha at the spiritual level.
Rangada,
Yes.
then the person who realized the Brahmic consciousness,
Yes.
the person who realized the Brahmic consciousness, can those person also fall into this exaggeration of instrumental ego?
That is exactly what Shendra is describing here. He is saying that even when you realize the Brahmic consciousness of self, the ego does not disappear entirely. Each individual can go in a different way. One individual will be tempted. He sees that his ego is not there and he can go in the right way. But some can go in the wrong way if the instrumental ego becomes very prominent. That's what Shendra is describing. He has told you first, right in the beginning, gradations. Okay? So there are different ways. Even at the spiritual level, you can go the right way, you can go the wrong way, you can go in the middle path. Even the ego lingers. Okay? But if you are sincere, that lingering ego also can disappear. Okay? But if you don't do that, if you are not purified enough, then you will go in the wrong way and you can become diabolical. There is a very interesting case in Russia. Okay? What was his name? I forget his name. But he was.
Rasputin, maybe, Rangada?
Pardon?
Rasputin? Are you meaning?
Yes, Rasputin. That's right. So he is definitely one interesting example of what Shendra is saying. But I was saying that it's interesting to find out other cases. Okay,
So Rangada, it's surprising that, the already liberated soul can, the liberated soul who realize the Brahman consciousness, even those people can fall into this diabolic
yes,
place. That's
possible,
surprising.
Yes. It's very possible. That's exactly what Shendra is describing here. And he is describing all this because he wants you to go to the third level, the supramental level. And if you want to go to supramental level, you have to be very, very aware of all these dangers. That's exactly what he's pointing out. The gross ego gets replaced by...
In our mythology,
Pardon?
In our mythology, we have so many rishis, no? Rishi Durvasa and all those people who have this ego.
Yes.
They are the realized souls, no?
That's right. Exactly. And when you have realized your soul, but you don't always remain there. Sometimes you come down into your normal consciousness, then the old nature takes over. Okay. The old nature takes over. Even when you are stationed above, the body-mind life will continue in the old way. That's a very example in the self. Same goes sonnet self. Okay.
Rangada,
Yes, that's another. Tell me.
that is what I was thinking, that when a person identifies with the self, the lower nature is still as it is.
That's right.
So the ego often ego might not dissolve, and all the rishis are example. I think this, when Sherwind has mentioned, like Durvasa is an example which we can easily recall.
That's right. But not all rishis. Some rishis are not all rishis, but one or two rishis. Yeah,
No, Rangada. Many may not. But what I mean to say is it is not necessary that if you have realized the self, your lower portions have been purified and you have got over your ego. Because ego, mind has a big thing to do in the ego, isn't it?
Yes. That's right.
And there is
what did you say last?
Ego and all that. Mind also has the mind has a big role to play in our ego, Rangada.
Oh yes.
Our mind consciousness.
Absolutely.
So naturally, till we are identified, when we become identified with our lower mind, separative mind, then naturally again our ego will come up, na?
Absolutely. Exactly.
When we are in self-consciousness, we will be in self-consciousness.
Yes.
When we come back to our mind consciousness, our ego will rise up again, na? Isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Because Sherma is very clear about it. Where does the ego start? Okay. The ego is a sense of individuality which feels itself separate. Okay? It is not there so much in matter. In the atom, it is not there, although it's an individual formation. But when it comes into the animal, the beginnings of ego start coming in at the vital level. The beginnings. But the real, Srimdo says, the ego becomes absolutely dominant in the mind. So what you're saying is absolutely right. So, but when you go above the mind again, the ego disappears. But it is replaced by the subtler form of ego, which is the instrumental ego. And the instrumental ego, as you can imagine very clearly, that you may say, I am only an instrument. Real humility can be there. But on the other hand, you can also think that I am an instrument, but the others are not an instrument, therefore I am very great. It can go that way also. That is what Shem is describing here. The instrumental ego going in the wrong way. That's right. So we continue with the text. All right. Now Shem is giving very interesting examples. A man becomes a leader of men or eminent in a large or lesser circle and feels himself full of a power that he knows to be beyond his own ego force. There's knowledge, he realizes. He may be aware of a fate acting through him, or a will mysterious and unfathomable, or a light within of great brilliance. Even that is not enough to remove the ego altogether. That's what Shem is pointing out. Look at the words. He knows very well that I'm being manipulated by will from above, or there's a great brilliance of light within me. There are extraordinary results of his thoughts, his actions, or his creative genius. He effects some tremendous destruction that clears the path for humanity, or some great construction that becomes its momentary resting place. He is a scourge. He can be a scourge. The word is used is a cause of great suffering. It's a scourge is a whip for punishment. Okay? So a man can become a cause of great suffering. He may impose suffering on others. Or he is a bringer of light and healing. It can go both ways, even at the spiritual level. That's what we pointed out. A creator of beauty or a messenger of knowledge. Or if his work and his effects are on a lesser scale and have a limited field, still they are attended by a strong sense that he is an instrument and chosen for his mission or his labor. I'll point out something interesting because it's in the public sector, public domain. 2 days ago, Modi gave an interview to somebody and he said that I am quite conscious that the divine has sent me down here to do a work. So he considers himself to be an instrument. But very clearly in his utterances, you can see that the ego has not gone. I'm not saying that he is at a spiritual level. But even when you feel that you are an instrument of the divine, the ego is very much there at the lower level, definitely. It is very much there also at the spiritual level. Okay? So you can feel yourself to be an instrument, but that's not enough to remove the ego. That's what we pointed out. Men who have this destiny and these powers come easily to believe and declare themselves to be mere instruments in the hand of God or of fate. But even in the declaration, we can see that they can improve or take refuge an intenser and more exaggerated egoism than ordinary men have the courage to assert or the strength to house within them. And often, if men of this kind speak of God, it is to erect an image of Him, which is really nothing but a huge shadow of themselves or their own nature. A sustaining deific essence, interesting word he used, deific essence, the essential divinity, the divineness, if you want, of their own type of will and thought and quality and force. This magnified image of the ego is a master whom they serve. They replace, but sincerely they believe that I am serving the divine, but it's the ego they are serving. There can be a total feeling that I am doing God's work, but the ignorance is there because of the ego. This happens only too often in yoga. To strong but crude vital natures or minds too easily exalted when they allow ambition, pride, or the desire of greatness to enter into their spiritual seeking and, and vitiate. It's vitiate to make impure, okay? To make it, to, to make it vile, okay? To make it impure. Its purity of motive. A magnified ego stands between them and their true being and grasps for its own personal purpose the strength from a greater unseen power, divine or undivine, acting through them, of which they become vaguely or intensely aware. See how many gradations. He has begun the paragraph with gradations and he's given us all the gradations. Intellectual perception of vital sense of a force greater than ours and of ourselves, as moved by it, is not sufficient to. So, now you can understand why the path of yoga is like the razor's edge. Okay. Shurastya dhara. You go one step this side wrong. You go one step the other side wrong. It's a very narrow, straight and narrow path. You require the divine grace.
Rangada,
Yes. Tell me.
Rangada, in Karma Yoga, we need to have a little bit of ego, no, to do things.
In the beginning.
In Karma Yoga, in the beginning.
In the beginning, you have to. Everybody has an ego in the beginning. Why only Karma Yoga? Everywhere.
No, once a realized soul comes down and works in our nature, in our physical nature, he needs to have some sense of individuality to get things done, no?
Pallavi, what you're
That
saying
may not be.
is very interesting what you're saying because, and I can give you many examples, but the best example is Srivda himself says that when you are in the physical world, okay, some form of ego is always there. So it
has to be there, no?
Yeah, it's a shadow of the ego. Some amount of limitation has to be there. Limitation is the ego which makes you separate from others. So that is there, it has to be there. And that can be very mild. It can be a very faint shadow. Srivda uses the word faint shadow. Okay? So what you're saying is right. In fact, I'll tell you something very interesting. In prayers and meditations, there's a prayer in which she says, she is praying for the capacity to do work in the physical world. And then the children ask her, why are you not asking for liberation? Mother says very clearly, I have to work in the physical world. If I have to be liberated and remain there in the higher world, how will I work in the physical world? So you have to be connected with the divine, but still when you are working in the physical world, exactly what Pallavi said, some form of ego is there, some limitation. And that is exactly what happened also with Ramakrishna. He used to leave a small desire so that it will pull him down into the physical world. Because the Divine Mother told him, you can't be in trance all the time. If you are in trance, you are not identified with the body, mind, life, but you are up there in your higher levels of consciousness. But if you are there, how will you work in the physical world? You have to be absolutely so, but you have to be in the physical world with as little attachment and as little ego. So that is there. It is there.
Rangada,
Yes. Yes.
in the third level,
Yeah.
once we are actually, in that level where we are completely identified with the divine and still we are aware of what we are.
Yes.
Is the ego there in that level also?
No. It is not there at all in third
I
level.
think ultimately we have to reach that level according
That's right.
like what I have understood from Gita. That in the third level it is gone. Till we are in the second level, I think this is right. We need an ego to continue working.
Yes.
But once a person can reach the third level, of course that is a big if. But if a person reaches the third level, then the ego is no longer necessary.
That's right. That's right. But what you're saying is very interesting, and I'll add something to it. Kachalavi, the difference between the Gita And Sri Aurobindo philosophy is this. The Gita says, live in the physical world like a lotus leaf in water. In other words, your consciousness is absolutely clear. Okay? And you are not affected by the impacts of the physical world on yourself. You are not affected. But the body mind life is not transformed. Okay? For that, you have to live permanently in the your consciousness there in the Purushottam element permanently.
Yes, Rangada, that is the addition of Sherwin to Gita's yoga.
That's
That
right.
accept.
That's it.
And Gita reaches till here and then leaves there. The next step is what Sherwin added to that. What I
That's
have
right.
understood.
Exactly. Exactly. So you can see how Srila is going even beyond the Gita. But the Gita is fantastic. Gita is going beyond the normal liberation. So in the spiritual field, the first idea is liberation. The second idea is the Gita's get liberated, but don't go up, come down into your body mind life and continue to do work for the divine. And if your consciousness is clear, the divine will use you as an instrument, but the body mind life will be imperfect. So your action also will be to a certain extent imperfect. But Srivna is saying if you raise your consciousness to the third level and stay put there, you have to stay put. That means permanently your consciousness is capable of remaining at that level. Then you have the power also to descend with your pure consciousness down into the body mind life without being affected. And that can also transform the body mind life. Nature also will be transformed. The body mind life, nature also will be transformed. That is it. So you can see 4 levels if you want. The normal level, our own condition. Ignorance and ego and separation and multiplicity. Second level, ego is largely gone, but it can be replaced by the instrumental ego. But you are in a consciousness which is pure, Brahmic consciousness, stable. You are not acting, you are immutable, you are only watching and not acting. This is the traditional goal of liberation. But the body mind life remains imperfect, but the traditional yogis don't care. What is that body mind life? What is that if it is imperfect? It's going to die in any case. My body is not going to live forever, so I don't care for it. Okay? Neither body nor vital nor mind. They will all dissolve and go back. So that's the second. The third level is the Gita's. No, make your consciousness perfect, but don't remain stationed up there. Come down into the body mind life and do work. Loka hite rata. Do work for the good of the world. Okay? Loka sangranartham. Continue to do work for the world. So you have to come down, not remain up there. Okay? Then the third and fourth is Zone Yoga, where even the body mind life has to become perfect. Because if the body mind life is not perfect, then the divine will acting through you will continue to remain a little imperfect. So these are the 4 levels. Very clearly, we can see that. Okay? So we have only got 2 minutes left, so we can't do the next one. But thank you for giving me the opportunity of making these 4 levels so clear. Okay? So I hope it was interesting because very clearly now you can see the gradation. Yeah? The normal liberation of yoga, then the Gita's version that don't disappear into the infinite. Actually, many do disappear into the infinite, or they remain in the spiritual worlds. I am reading the and mother's commentary also, and she says there are so many people who remain there, rishis, okay, marus, and all these semi-divine creatures. Okay, the whole list is there. Okay, in the Gita, the whole list is there. They are all living permanently in the spiritual worlds, Brahma Loka, Ananda Loka. Okay, all these worlds are there, and they decide to live there. But Sri says, come down. And Gita also says, come down. But slight difference. Okay. It's already 8:39, so we have to stop here today. Next time we'll take up this perception.
You had told us that you'll look up Savitri, the world staircase, and tell us in which lines Sri Aurobindo describes those different sounds.
Yeah, the world soul. The canto is world soul.
Oh,
Yeah, the world soul, not the world stare. I made a mistake.
oh,
I already
okay.
get mixed up with it. The world soul. About 200.
I think I have. Yes.
Okay. So we
Au revoir,
stop.
Rangada.
Okay, au revoir,
Merci
everybody.
beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Bonne
Thank you,
journée.
Rangada.
Thank you.
Au revoir.
Au revoir, everybody.